It is the first day and the first drawing for the challenge. It was difficult to figure out what to do as I've just started, so I've spent quite a lot of time brainstorming and figuring out the composition work and figuring out what I wanted to do for this piece. I was going to do a straight back facing perspective where the character's back is directly facing you, similar to Velvet's Miku illustration, but this wasn't a style study, and I wanted to try something else. So I did. Without the face, which I usually include in my drawings, the pose was a lot more difficult, and I had to edit it a few times, and I still feel like I could have done a bit better with it. I am pretty happy with the fingers, though. Finally, this prompt is freestyle based. Though I wanted this piece to evoke anxiety and fear, I added some light source for a bit of contrast in value and contrast to the rest of the piece's emotions in general, as if someone's grabbing her out or reaching out to help her out of the darkness. I got carried away with the scribbling and the painting and shadows. I really enjoyed making that. Otherwise, I'm pretty satisfied with this piece. So here it is, day one at Viri. Here is the second day and the second entry for this entire behemoth of a challenge. It took around the same time as day one and just as difficult. This time around, I wanted to emphasize the background. I needed to work on my skies and grass because I don't really draw those kind of scenery as much. And I also needed to work on my perspective. I wanted to find a way to create an illustration that didn't rely on darker colors or darker motions, but still provide some interest. I did end up adding some overlay shadow to Io at the end, but I didn't want that to be my primary focus, and instead just a way to set her apart from the scenery. I enjoyed using the brushes and creating the background a lot. It really felt like painting, and I really enjoyed the flowers, especially. I spent a lot of time on the grass. I did a lot of stroking for the skies to give it some interest. And for the piece, I definitely have to improve on my perspective since it wasn't as good as I'd hoped. The face and the head in general was the one that I struggled with the most. I don't really draw my characters looking up like that, so it was difficult to figure out what to do. Otherwise, I would say I'm pretty happy with this piece. Here it is, day 2, Io. Day 3 is dedicated to Banbean, another major OC. Wow. Before I began, I spent some time gathering pieces because today is an Emirichu art study. I grabbed inspiration from her channel for the artworks. I also looked through her socials and her comics that she made with the Love and Deep Space characters and that high school AU. But the one thing that's helped me the most in figuring out what made her art style so fun yet down to earth was the Spilled Ink channel that she made with Ditus. I'm aware that she's not the one who colored the thumbnails, but I still found a lot of help, or I found it very helpful because it helped me understand her line art. In my eyes, it was the one thing that was the most distinct when it came to Emirichu's art style. It was the line art, the confident strokes, and the rounder ears and thinner bangs. Also, when she draws the top of the head and she's not able to complete the stroke, she just chops it up a little bit so it doesn't look so lumpy while still looking somewhat smooth. I took this to heart and used it for Banbean, especially since she didn't have a hat to cover the top of her head. I used this pencil that was hopefully similar to the pencil that she used in her thumbnails and her drawings because it had a bit of a jitter and a bit of a traditional look to it while not looking too graphite like. Just a pen with some textures. She also uses a dark brown outline for all her characters, and luckily this worked out for a character like Banbean. The shading was pretty simple, just some screen and multiply as far as I saw, and that's about it for Banbean. Day 3 is finished. Okay, why did I do that? Day 4 is for Brazen, and today is dedicated to another art style study, this time from Kiri, a good friend of mine, also known as Kiri Art Cafe, and she makes beautiful, bright works and colorful illustrations. And even though she is a traditional artist, I really wanted to study her stuff because she's so fun to talk to, and it's definitely reflected in the works that she makes. And I really liked it. For the digital part of studying the work, I used a ballpoint pen, I used this oil hairbrush, this flat watercolor mixing brush, and I alternated between monobrush and water brush on the software so that I could blend things and also make some sharper contrast between colors. In comparison to day 2, where I struggled with drawing Io's head perspective where she is looking up, Brazen's was a bit easier since I ended up learning that the perspective wasn't as dramatic as I thought. I also drew her head facing upwards on purpose because I really wanted to work on that again. I was excited for the iconic sprinkle background, especially because one thing in Kiri's art style that's very prominent to me is her colorful, vibrant backgrounds that are in the form of fireworks, confetti, sprinkles, anything colorful that bounces around the place. Overall, this drawing was difficult, but it helped me grounded what I was visualizing, especially because I was studying a more realistic art style. So here it is, Brazen, day 4. Day 5 is dedicated to Chi. Ta-da! Chi is the twin on the right, by the way. Just wanted to make that clear. Harspin will be getting his own on a separate day. And, well, that's about it. Today was a speed test, so this one was the quickest by far. And thank goodness it was, because on this day, Unethical released, and I was not doing so well. The song was so good. I couldn't recover. Today I wanted to experiment with more pens, so I decided to try the pencil from day 3 when I was working on Banbean's drawing. I wanted to emphasize interactions, one because Harspin and Cheese are exclusively some of the only pieces that will have them directly interacting with one another or having different subjects interacting with one another. So I wanted to make use of that. I also wanted to emphasize patterns since I don't draw those as much. And I wanted to draw some patterns. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it turned out alright, even though it was tricky to make Harspin looking at Chi. But, well, I'm gonna have to work on that. It was difficult with another piece I made a while back. So here it is, day 5, Chi. The final drawing for this week, and the 6th drawing in the overall challenge, is for Contra. Today was a hand test. I'm always trying to include hands when drawing my subjects, my human subjects, but today was especially a day for hands. I'm working with what's otherwise a mostly black ink void background, so I really needed to add some texture and some contrast of value, one because it makes me happy, and I also wanted to find a way to use it while keeping the piece simple and mysterious, reminiscent of Contra's personality. I did mess up on the hands. I added 6 fingers. Luckily, someone pointed it out before I finished it. I was very excited to color the ink and add some variation. I knew I didn't want to keep it completely black for the most part, so adding those dark blues and purples were very, very fun. For the orbs, those light balls, I used some theme colors from other OCs and I added them for some light source. I realized that I should have made it bounce off to at least some other things in the background, like those arms, if you want to call it that, and the inky floor, but it's not much of a bother. It's it is it's fine. For the next week, I want to focus more on my characters and storytelling because I feel like I didn't emphasize that as much for the drawings, and I want to express more of the characters' traits and the stories behind them and them in general, and make the pieces more focused on emotion and expression. But it'll be based on what the prompt calls me to do. Anyways, those are all the drawings for this week, and this is the first checkpoint for the challenge. I hope that you enjoyed, and I'm wishing you all the best. Bye.